Welcome back to the K-Files. Today we are investigating Scully's illicit tattoo affair in Never Again. Sexy Ouroboros. Welcome back to the K-Files. We're here again in the lush basement office at HollywoodRedux.com. I'm your host, Katie.
And I'm your co-host, Grizel, and we're coming at you from HollywoodRedux.com.
Yes.
All right.
Well,
we're back. It's
back.
November. No more webs. No more. Well,
yeah, we've cleared out the cobwebs. We've cleaned up all the...
Because, you know what? I feel like he needed to be part of the set. So.
Well, today in this episode, I mean, it's all about that mortality. So
I just didn't want Halloween to be over. That's all.
An actual skull. Yeah. Yeah, I know. We're keeping Halloween alive. We did a big event last month, Halloween Redux. Especially on the K-Files, we really celebrated all the horror of the spooky season. Go back, rewatch all the episodes from October. We did the goriest, grossest X-Files episodes. We investigated the shit you can't unsee from the X-Files.
And there's a lot of stuff we can't unsee.
Yes, so as it turns out, there's a lot of goop for Mulder to whap off of his fingers. It's a lot of fun. So check those out. And if you're interested, we have a lot of other great spooky content from the month of October. Our video game podcast, IGL, played a bunch of horror games. And the Writer's Room talked about the goriest movies, the scariest movies, all sorts of good stuff.
So if you don't want Halloween to be over, check out those.
If you're like us and you wish Halloween lasted year-round. We're giving you all the content to make that happen for you. But here on the show today, we are investigating a decidedly less spooky episode, of a monster of a very different variety than any of those ones that we investigated for Halloween. This is one of my favorite episodes, Never Again, written by, of course, the Morgan and Wong dynamic duo writing team. And directed by Rob Bowman, the guy who directs all the most cinematic episodes of the X-Files. I love the trio. They always play together nicely.
It's a good mix, man.
Yeah,
it's a good mix. They make magic when they're together.
Yeah, exactly. It reminds me that I feel like something that happens in the old series pretty much every episode that was missing from the miniseries, and I actually really, we stayed positive on the miniseries. We kind of rode the high waves of the miniseries.
It was fun to get X-Files episodes,
Yeah, fun to have new eps. But a lot of people were more down on it.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that was missing from the miniseries that you can see in this episode is that you had this stable of writers that were the best in TV. Still to this day, they're still the best writers in TV to this day. Vince Gilligan, Howard Shore, these are still some of the best writers that are working now. Anyway, the writers were writing and they were imagining all these crazy things, and then they had this smaller team of really reliable directors: Kim Manners, Rob Bowman, Chris Carter sometimes directed, but I feel he's not principally a director.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying was a little bit missing from the miniseries, is that since the writers themselves were the ones directing the episodes, you didn't get to have this really special collaboration where you had these amazing writers imagining, and then this really superlative directors who are working directors who are making TV magical, and in a whole new way than we'd ever seen before in TV history. And Kim Manners still, historically, has directed most of the best episodes of TV on the planet, Supernatural, etc. But we missed that. We didn't get that collaboration in the miniseries because we just had the writers directing themselves. So in this episode, boy, do we get that special dynamic with Morgan and Wong, who have written some of the most indelible episodes of the show, and especially when it comes to a Scully episode, it's fun for us to get their perspective on her character. I think because they show a very lonely side of her. Right before we get the big cancer diagnosis, and there's this whole big wave that crashes down on her. This is Dana Scully in her early 30s, having a bit of a crisis of faith, one might say, a crisis of meaning, really.
Again, making Dana like a character you can somewhat relate to, you know, someone who goes through problems like you do, someone who is just trying to find answers like everyone else is, you know, so like
Yeah.
I
she's real.
love the outcome.
Yeah, and this episode feels very different to me.
Very different.
Very different. You have the element, of course, we haven't even mentioned, of the Jodie Foster voiceover.
Jodie Foster,
as the tattoo.
Finally, what a great little
Yes.
cameo for Miss Foster.
Yeah,
in this episode.
Really, well-versed fans know that Chris Carter modeled the character of Dana Scully off of Jodie Foster's performance in Silence of the Lambs as Clarice Agent Starling. And so that was kind of just this wonderful kismet thing that then Jodie herself, who's the spirit of Scully, could come on in this capacity, do this really cool voiceover. And she worked with the writers doing the voiceover, and they were both really thrilled. They thought
that tattoo was really dark, man.
Dark, yeah.
Dude.
Ed Jerse, a very dark monster. Just a man, you know, seemingly, but had a lot of malice inside him, we could say.
Dude, that tattoo is like taking over nonstop.
It gives voice. Well, the thing is, the tattoo is him. He was hallucinating. So that tattoo is giving voice to some dark force inside him, and that we see playing out in his life. Like, he lost his kids in that divorce, or we don't know the details, but it's clear that his wife got the better end of the divorce. He burned himself out of that photo with his kids. I mean, we get windows into how dark things have gotten for him.
Yeah, what a rough
on the
past
exterior.
Or what he was going through. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I did, however, because that tattoo played such a big role in this episode, I liked how the color also played a big role into the episode as well.
Yeah.
Red. Also, the eyes, the tattoo's eyes.
Oh,
the
yeah.
female's eyes were such a nice blue whenever it was being malicious and whatnot. It obviously stood out. So color had a lot to do with
definitely
this episode.
Yeah.
And the lighting was also very red too. Red played a lot in this episode.
It's a noir-y episode. The score, the music is very different in the show. There's actual real music, real life music from the world in it, which is not very often does that happen. That's pretty rare. That's in the drinking game. You could drink, I think, on that one. That's a rarity. So you have that Partridge Family song that plays over the murder of the neighbor, very horrifically.
Speaking of that, wasn't Jodie Foster related to that? If I read this correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, Internet, let us know.
When she was a little kid, she was part of that bunch, or at least acted in an episode.
Oh, something to do with the Partridge Family.
Of the Partridge Family, yeah. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
That sounds
please,
about right.
Because if that's not true, well then,
another
fact.
another fun little tidbit.
A little fun fact.
Yeah. The Jodie Foster is that
was pretty
mistress.
Cool to see that happen. So
very cool.
I'm finally, man, she's finally on the X-Files. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this episode is important because it's right before Scully perceives that she gets cancer in Leonard Betts. She learns that. This episode comes before that. But funnily enough, when it aired real time, because of Fox wanted this episode, the episode after Leonard Betts to air at the Super Bowl, so they swapped the order of the episodes. Oh. And Gillian Anderson was disappointed that they decided to do that because she said that if in the order of the episodes, if Scully knew she had cancer, she would have played the performance of Scully very differently. So it's interesting how that happened.
I like how they kept her in the dark as well. It wasn't...
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's she's acting out. She's playing out that cycle that she talked about on the date with Ed Jerse. This episode I love because it's I think it's the first, but it's it's not the first because Beyond the Sea happened also. One of these episodes of Scully revelatory character moments, and I'm reminded very much of Milagro. This episode is very similar to Milagro, where Scully meets a mysterious man with dark, shadowy, potentially romantic, but maybe just darkly kind of sexual undertones. That is danger, the underground, basically the underground of Scully as she is on every single day when she goes to work. Sometimes Scully gets these and she talks about it, she likes the authority, she likes the having that figure in her life, but then eventually she starts rebelling against it. Right. So that's what Scully's doing. She's playing out the cycle, and she's tired. Yeah, she's tired of playing out the cycle. Even she's depressed that she's playing it out again.
That's why she got a tattoo, man.
That's why she got a tattoo.
That's why
exactly.
she got a tattoo. Dude, Dana Scully just got cooler, man. I'm just going to say that tattoo she got was pretty dope.
The Ouroboros.
Actually made me want to go get more tattoos.
Me too. We talk about it on the show before. We talk about it a lot, that there is some evidence to support the idea, the theory, that Dana Scully is immortal. One of the pieces of evidence is this Ouroboros tattoo that she gets, which is a snake eating its own tail, which we learn later is a symbol favored by the alchemists that is meant to bring up the circular nature of the universe, the perpetuity of life, that there is no death, there is only more life. The snake sheds its tail, and then things continue. And that is the meaning of Scully's character in a lot of ways, is like she'll never die, she's eternal. Like, remember in Clyde Bruckman when she asked when she was learning about how she would die, it was like, you don't. Sorry.
Not you, Dana. Not
Or
you.
and also the episode Monday where they keep Mulder and Scully keep repeating the same bank heist over and over again. One of the theories is that the reason why they're in a loop is because Scully can't die, so they have to figure out how to get out of this loop where Scully gets blown up in a bank heist. X-Files, stay with me.
What?
Woo!
What?
Yep.
Oh my god, that's pretty dope.
There's so much to talk about in Never Again. I could talk about this episode for a long time.
There is one fun fact that I want to throw out before, like, we get too insane.
Chris's fun fact. UFO.
Fun fact. I found out that Quentin Tarantino was actually offered the role to be a director for the episode, but actually couldn't because he wasn't, I think, in the Directors Guild. If I read that correctly, or my memory's correct.
Sorry, Quentin. No X-Files for
Quentin.
you.
But
he did okay.
He did okay. I mean, he's still okay, but that would have been pretty dope to have that
cool.
under your belt. I mean, and Quentin Tarantino is totally appropriate for the role of the X-Files. Are you kidding me? I would have loved to have seen an episode of that.
That would have been fun.
But that's the fun fact.
I have a fun fact, actually. I love this tidbit. So at the time of filming, Gillian Anderson wanted some input as to who her co-star would be in this episode because they make out and there's like a lot of intimate stuff. So she asked to be exactly, like drop that bass. She asked to be included in the casting process. So when they were making decisions, they wanted to cast this guy Rodney Roland who played Ed Jerse, and she was like not that into him, and so she was like, "Ooh, let me see. Does he have any, like, can I see any, like, video of him?" So she was kind of iffy at first, but then she saw that actually they had written the episode with this guest actor in mind and that he was definitely the right person for the role. And more to the point, she kind of liked him, and they were dating. They started dating after this episode. Yes, Gillian Anderson.
Snap.
They were together for I think a while. They were together actually, and they were
That's why she wanted to be in the casting. I'm just kidding. That's pretty cool though. That like they ended up together. I mean, it usually happens, doesn't it? Like it usually happens.
Well, there's obviously a lot of chemistry between those two actors. You can see it on screen that Gillian Anderson did have some good chemistry with that.
On a serious note, though, those two actually did very well together, like in the episode. So it was a good episode all around, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the same chemistry as Gillian Anderson and David Duchovny, for example.
Never.
And in this episode, their chemistry is great because they're fraught. It's apart, so they're kind of like pulling apart, which I always love to see. And it's kind of a bummer episode, but I love that we get to see a window into their private conversations where they actually give voice to their like fears and desires and inner goings on. It's wonderful. Morgan and Wong, I love you. Send that out.
It's for you guys.
All right, Never Again. We're closing up the case file, shining the flashlight into all the dark corners and the X-Files here on the K-Files. We'll come back to these episodes. Undoubtedly, there are always more tidbits.
Always more to solve. Always.
More evidence. But for today, I believe that about wraps it up.
I think so.
I'm your host, Katie. You can find me at KMoles on all the social medias.
And I'm your co-host, Krizal. You can find me at Krizal on all social medias. And we're coming at you from HollywoodRedux.com, guys.
Yeah, we've got a lot of great content at the site. We've got a video game podcast called IGL. We have another podcast called The Writer's Room that does movie reviews. We just did a Doctor Strange review that got deeply into our love affair with Tilda Swinton's bald, beautiful head in that movie.
Absolutely.
So you don't want to miss that. And we've got only more content rolling out to you as we get through the rest of the fall here, post-Halloween.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Always.
So stay tuned to Hollywood Redux.
So please, please, please comment, subscribe,
Yeah,
Like
watch the video next door.
Right next to Katie.
Yep.
Share.
And we'll be back next week with another new episode of the K-Files. The truth is already here.
See you guys.
See you later.